You're listening to the Dad Whisperer podcast with Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield, the place where you, as a dad, will gain more tools for your fathering toolbox, and where moms and daughters are also invited to listen into the conversation. Now, here is your host, Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield.
Hello and welcome back to the Dad Whisperer podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield. And if you're a dad who's ready to add more tools to your fathering toolbox, you've come to the right place. I know you know the grid already, but I'm going to repeat it just for those of you who are new. Imagine yourself, dad, standing side by side with other men who are also dads like you in the trenches wanting to be the best dad you can be. I'm on the sidelines as your coach, cheering you on and saying, on your mark, get set, go. On your mark is the topic or the theme. Get set. I'm going to fill that in with stories and stats. Go is always your practical action step so that you can put your love for your daughter and your son into action this week. Well, today I have a return guest coach who's joining me, drum roll, for the fourth time. Yes, this is an all-time record.
Whoa.
I have no doubt that you are going to love Dr. Kathy Koch as much as I do when you hear once again the depth in her wisdom, her practical application, and really at the end of the day, you will see that she has a heart like mine because she champions men. She champions fathers. And many of you can tell the difference between a woman who's faking it or actually making it, like really on your team. Dr. Kathy and I are on your team, men. We are cheering you on. And today is going to be a continuation of conversations that we've had before in terms of helping you be the best dad you can be. Well, her name, Dr. Kathy Koch, K-O-C-H, is pronounced Cook. So if you look her up, you'll see that's how you spell her name. She joined me in 2021, 23, 25. And if you haven't listened back, you can go to drmichellewatson.com, type her name in the search bar, and you can go back and find some of our interviews before that were on topics like how you can unlock your daughter's smarts, how to raise a resilient daughter, and how to lead your daughter to develop character that changes culture. Well, before I give you on your mark topic today, let me tell you a little bit more about her. Dr. Kathy is a renowned speaker, author, researcher, and founder of Celebrate Kids, Inc. And her work is shaped by strong family relationships, wise adult mentors, intentional encouragement, and a deep confidence in God's design. She loves seeing children flourish, and she enjoys and is passionate about coming alongside parents to help make that happen. If that resonates with your spirit, you're going to love this today. She's earned, listen to this, 3 degrees. Oh yeah, she's a smarty from Purdue University, including a PhD in reading and educational psychology. She has served as a tenured associate professor in the education department at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, and is the author of 8 books. So today we will be talking about her most recent book, which is titled Raising Gender Confident Kids, Helping Kids Embrace Their God-Given Design. Welcome, Dr. Kathy Koch.
Well, thank you for having me on. What a delight to listen to all of that. You're so positive. I appreciate you.
Well, you and I end up landing in a lot of the same spaces, don't we?
We do.
Where we're both speaking to real people in real places that are wanting real help and real resources. So that's why it's such an honor. Thank you for joining me again.
Happy to be here.
So today, on your mark, again, a play on your book title. On your mark today, the title is Raising Gender Confident Daughters. And you told me before we got started, here's now the get set part. We're going to break this down. This was a book you hesitated writing. I think we can probably guess why that would be, but why don't you say?
Well, I was confident the haters would come. I'm almost embarrassed to say that I didn't have enough courage to write it. We're a relatively small ministry. I was concerned about being targeted and being called out by people who are obviously on the pro-LGBTQ, gender agenda. And it was beautiful when Dr. Jeff Myers, the president of Summit Ministries, came to me and said, hey, I was going to write a book. I heard that you want to write a book. Should we write it together? Like, Michelle, that was such a God wink because the book is what it is because the two of us collaborated, and we both have, like you and I, we have very similar, if not exact, philosophies, and yet different abilities and experiences that we could bring to the book. So, and Summit is a large ministry, and it helped me to know that I would be really looked out for if the haters came.
Uh-huh.
And what's interesting is that very few haters have come. And I think it's
Wow.
because we deal with the project, we deal with the topic well, and our concern is for parents of children. We didn't go after adults. I think adults who are gender confused are also at risk, and someone needs to walk with them and introduce them to truth. But our agenda in this book is to really help parents strong in a really difficult moment. And I think that's hard to argue with.
Come on. I love that. And isn't it interesting that the word confident is in the title, and yet that's where you were pressed? How do you have enough confidence to even write what it is that you're writing about? So if you're a dad listening that says, I have little to no confidence in addressing gender issues with my daughter, we're right in there with you going, this
Yes.
is a hard topic to talk about with confidence, but we come with humility. That posture of humility is how we open up conversations that make a difference and that matter. So how about, Dr. Kathy, if you begin, like you did in the book, of just defining some terms?
Sure.
Because I think sometimes that can be a place where we might miscue. So how about you start by defining like non-binary, male, female, how do you, transgender?
Yeah.
Give us a quick overview on that.
Well, first, isn't it absolutely ridiculous that we have to define, male and female? Back in the day, even people who weren't raised in church knew that a boy was a boy and a girl was a girl. But, male and female are the genders that, God created us with. And you cannot change your gender. That's an important part of the definition. There's 6,500 reported differences between men and women. You cannot add or take away a body part and change your gender. It's not possible. Your gender's in every single part of your existence because of God's design. So that's just a simple male, female. Boys grow up to be men and girls grow up to be women. And that's part of gender. Gender, there's only two. There aren't more than that. You can't determine your gender. Your gender is determined for you by God at the point of his decision to make you you. So those are important things we talk about. Transgender would be somebody who believes they're born in the wrong body and they want to change their gender. They're going to transition to a different gender, again, which is not possible. So there's a whole section in the book about vocabulary, which goes into more detail about that. Gender dysphoria, Michelle, gender dysphoria is a term that means that you are clinically depressed or clinically distressed about your gender. And that's actually very rare. We wrote the book about gender confusion because gender confusion is common. And that's because of the cultural nuances, the media, the songs, and the social media influence, especially on girls. So gender confusion is common. Gender dysphoria, a clinically depressed state, is uncommon. And I think that's an important thing for dads to know because we don't have to panic. We don't have to be as concerned as the mass media would want us to be.
And how would you define non-binary?
Right, non-binary, somebody who doesn't want to be a full-on a boy or full-on a girl. They gravitate between the two. And that's just, again, that's just sad. These people are lost and confused. They're not stupid. They're deceived. They don't like something about themselves. They're not sure they would like being totally the opposite gender. So they put themselves on a sliding scale. And on some days they might dress like a woman or a girl. And on some days, that girl might dress like a boy because she's just confused.
Okay, so let's go back to what you mentioned about what would you tell a dad to either think about or say to his daughter who says, I do think I'm in the wrong body. I'm confused. This doesn't feel right. Does that tend to be a stage, a phase? How does a dad best walk with his daughter through that process?
I love that we can talk about this, Michelle. The first thing that I would encourage dads to say is, tell me more. Or what makes you think so, especially if this comes out of the blue. And this is what's happened. The rapid onset gender dysphoria is something that happens more often with girls than boys, where out of the blue, they come home talking about the fact that they'd like to transition to be a boy. So if you're totally shocked, or even if you're not, I suppose, you would say, tell me more. What makes you think so? What happened? I can almost guarantee you that a girl who says that has had something happen to her. She was told that she's ugly, or she was told you're too tall, you must be a boy. Like I was the tallest in my class all the way through grade 8. And it's not biblical that girls are supposed to be shorter than men. But in the
Right.
culture, most men are taller than women. So I was the tallest, and it can be awkward. And if I was today a child, I might think, well, maybe I am supposed to be a boy. I am the tallest one in the room. So we need to say to our girls, what makes you think so? What has happened? So that we can address the cause of the confusion. Chances are really good that girls don't want to be boys. Girls want to be understood being girls. And this is where dad can hug and, make appropriate eye contact, smile and say, sweetheart, I'm sorry you're confused. I'm sorry that happened. That boy was bullying you, or that boy was teasing you, or that girl is jealous of your beauty and said something to discourage you. Do you think that that could be what's going on? And you listen longer, like you and I both believe. You just listen longer. Let the silence fill the space. Don't feel like the dad shouldn't feel like they have to fill all that space. Just let the girl think and process, and then encourage her to talk with you.
And I love how in your book you even address at the end, you have 24 questions we're usually asked and how we can respond. So I'm telling you, man, this is a small, easy to read book that you'll mark up like I've marked up mine. But one of the things you address is pronouns. So let's just say the dad's like, hey, my daughter isn't maybe confused about her gender, but what's up with the pronouns?
Yeah.
She wants to be a they. Or can you address that confusion?
I will, and it is confusing. And I'll say this, if a girl thinks she's in the wrong body and is beginning, it's called social transitioning. They're not doing anything medical yet. They're not taking medicine to change her hormones. They're not meeting with the surgeon, praise God. But they're beginning to wonder if they would be happier as a boy. Then they want to be called he and him, or this is his and he is a he, and maybe would change the name. So here's what I would say, and I don't say this lightly, because this is a really messy issue. I would not recommend changing the pronoun. The pronoun is gender. Gender's given to us by God. She will always be a she. She will always be a her. Now, her name is a different subject. So if a girl who's, let's say she was, Carrie and she wants to be Carl, or she was Jane and she wants to be James, a name is chosen for us by our parents in most cases. It's not a biblical concept, if you will. So I would change the name. I wouldn't do that lightly either, but I would not change the pronoun. She's a she. The thing that's really interesting about this, Michelle, we don't have to use pronouns if they're present with us. We never do. The only time that I would ever use she for you is if you're not in the room.
Exactly.
If I'm talking to our mutual friend Suzanne, I might say, hey, I talked to her today.
Right.
But if you're present in the room, I don't have to use a pronoun. I would say, I talked to Michelle today. So the pronouns are only necessary when they're not in the room. I wouldn't use them. And if kids push back, I would say, look, I can't lie to you. Yeah. So 1 Corinthians 13, love is honest. I can't lie to you. And you don't even have to quote the scripture. You can just say, as your dad, I'm compelled to be a truth talker, wisdom walker. I will not lie to you. I've made that commitment to you your whole life. You've told me that you like that I'm trustworthy and that I'm a source of security for you. I'm not going to violate that. Yeah. You will always be a girl. So no, I can't call you a she. Well, so then you don't love me. No, I actually love you so much. I cannot lie.
Yeah. So what does a dad do if he's taken that stance? You'll always be a girl to me. In fact, I've even heard that sometimes it helps where like grandparents step in, because kids may give grandparents a different grace card. And the grandparent's like, I changed your diapers. I know your gender. But if a dad is saying that, like, no, I know you're a she, and there's now walls up with his daughter and more reactivity and distance. And a dad is going, I know what the Bible says. I agree. I actually agree with you, Dr. Kathy, and you, Dr. Michelle, but it's causing a breach in our relationship. Yeah. What would you say to that dad?
I would go out of my way to talk about everything but this. I would continue to have fun. I would continue to shoot hoops if she's a basketball player. I'd continue to play checkers or chess or pie in the face if she wants to. I'd, color with her at the dining room table if she enjoys coloring. I would cook with her if she enjoys cooking. I'd go to a concert with her if she enjoys music. I would continue to relate in every way possible, and I would talk about everything possible that you've always had in common with her. And I would try to not make this the one big billboard issue of our lives, because it does not need to be. We can also go out of our way to strategically and spontaneously affirm gender. When you see her twirling, you can say, "Man, I'm so glad you're a girl. You're just so adorable. I just got to tell you, I love it when you twirl. I always have."
Uh-huh.
Now, what's hard, Michelle, is if you have a boy who twirls, because he also likes the way his body moves, and he's a body smart kid. You also have to say to his son, "Hey, I love the way that your body just moved in that way." Otherwise, we have stereotypes, and stereotypes are one of the reasons that they're confused about gender today. And we can talk more about that if you want. But
Go
I
ahead.
think, affirm them in every way that you possibly can. All the talent, all the skill, all the ability, all the character, all the passion, and then look for opportunities to say, "Man, you just represented God's image in you well as you attacked that problem as a female. Good job."
You know what? I absolutely love what you just said. And I'm going to be honest, I hadn't even thought of it that way. When you said it, that awakened something in me, because I often encourage my counseling clients, now 30 years in, or
Yeah,
dads that I coach or guide, is I'll say this, but now to link it with what you just said, I'll say, if I said, like, don't notice my earrings right now, just whatever you do, don't notice my earrings, all you're going to notice are my earrings that you weren't noticing before I said it. And
exactly.
so this can become the end all be all and the entire focus.
Yeah.
But you're saying brilliantly, go back to what you had in common before. Let's not make this the end all be all. And that's a practical way that a dad can lead in a healthy way, I believe, with his daughter. Well, my goodness, we're going to have more practical action steps for you dads. We'll take a quick break and then come right back. I'll continue this conversation with Dr. Kathy.
Are you a dad who has ever desired a deeper connection with your daughter, but haven't known how to go about it? Let's Talk Conversation Starters for Dads and Daughters is the very resource you need. Dr. Michelle wrote it with you dads in mind. This book will support you with scripted questions, equip you to decode your daughter, and inspire you with stories of other dads and daughters. Don't wait any longer to be the hero you want to be and that your daughter needs you to be. So, to let the talking begin, head on over to drmichellewatson.com/books and order your copy today. This book will become a favorite in your fathering toolbox and will give you the answers you've been looking for. That's drmichellewatson.com/books. Now, back to the Dad Whisperer podcast.
Welcome back. I'm Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield, the Dad Whisperer, here with my friend Dr. Kathy Koch today, and we're talking about raising gender-confident daughters. So, Dr. Kathy, what would you say to dads that you've heard from in all your interactions with parents, moms, and dads that tend to be some mistakes that dads do make in addressing gender issues with their daughters?
Well, let me continue our conversation to say that they would ask about it over and over and over again. Now, let me clarify this. If a daughter has come home and said, I'd rather be a boy, I'm not saying ignore that. I'm saying get to the root of it if you can, get to the reason, find out why she's confused, pay attention to who she's listening to, what shows is she watching, is she following somebody on social media you don't know about? And every once in a while, you say to her, "Hey, has the playground been a safe place for you lately?"
Say that
You
again.
know, has the playground, let's say that she admitted that she was bullied. Then you
Uh-huh.
would say to her, "Has the playground been safe for you lately?"
Good.
So you come back not necessarily to gender, but to the things that you think has caused the confusion.
Mhm.
And so she knows that you're open to continuing the conversation. And you
Right.
might even boldly say, "Hey, did you feel like a girl today? Did you embrace, God's
Mhm.
given design of your body today? If not, let's talk about that." So talk about it sometimes, but talk about many other things as well. I think one of the mistakes that dads can make, so can moms, would be a lack of compassion. A lot of children tell me that they feel that dad is the judgmental one. They feel that dad is more often the one with the red pen versus the mom. So I would encourage our dad listeners, man, I'm glad they're here, to
Yeah.
lead with compassion, which is an
Mhm.
understanding that pain is real and I want to help. We
Mhm.
have to lead with hope, not despair, not, "Oh, woe is me, my daughter's got her gender confused." Like, don't panic. It's big. The media wants you to think it's bigger than it is, and it's actually declining now, which is, praise the God, such good news. Always have a posture of truth, If you don't know the answer, admit it. Don't lie.
Yeah.
Don't, because then if you're found to be not a truth talker later, that'll come back to hurt you. So if she asks a question, you can say, hey, I have not been thinking about this. Because see, what's happened, Michelle, is our daughters are more informed than we are. They've been on the internet, and they've been often manipulated by the gay and lesbian and gender confused community in their schools, if you have them in public schools in particular. So they're knowledgeable, and they're going to play that card, and they're going to make you feel and look stupid. Don't let that happen. Just say, hey, you've been thinking about this more than me. Give me a little bit of time. Or you could go to the internet with her looking over your shoulder.
Yep.
If you go to the wrong sites, of course, you'll find out that you can change your gender, but you need to take her, to the right sites, and be confident in your love for your daughter and in God's design. Gender confidence is confidence in God as the strategic, intentional designer. You don't have to know everything. You have to sit in the reality that God is a good, intentional, strategic creator, and he's made my daughter or my granddaughter to be a female on purpose, and I'm going to help her discover the joy of that.
Love it. Love it. Well, I know you have an entire chapter. Here's the title: Guiding Girls to Become Confident Women Using the 8 Great Smarts. And like I said earlier, episode 150, Dr. Kathy and I have delved into that before. Why do you say in your book and believe that that's an important component when it comes to identity, setting a foundation in ways beyond just gender, but just in terms of core identity? Why is that an important thing and something to include in this conversation?
Yeah, I love that you asked me that. Well, first of all, smart is a power word. Children who do not think they're smart don't show up. They tend to not try out for the play. They don't take, trigonometry, even though they did really well in advanced algebra. They just don't believe in themselves. They sell themselves short. So being smart, really, really important. Smart in 8 ways, as we discuss on the show, which was great to be on with you. The reason we addressed it in this book in a whole chapter about girls is the stereotypes. The idea that, a girl shouldn't be a logic smart mathematician. Like, that's a lie. So one of the things we say in this book over and over again is let the scripture lead you. There's no Bible verse that says that there are more boys interested in math and science than girls.
Right.
That has happened. Now, currently, there are more girls majoring in STEM topics in college than boys. That's important to understand. If you have a daughter who would rather change the oil in your car with you than cook with your wife in the kitchen, that's fine. You don't need to tease her, oh, you're such a boy. No. She's a girl who's logic smart and body smart and loves to figure out how things work. And she's a daddy's girl. She loves you and wants to spend time with you. Yeah. If you have a daughter who is, nature smart, she's going to want to be outside. And maybe people think that's really weird, that boys are the one who climb trees. No. Girls can climb trees. And I've loved being with audiences of young girls. And I've said, how many of you are tomboys? And I had an event, Michelle, a while back, 175 middle school, high school kids at a Christian conference. And I said, how many of you girls consider yourself tomboys? I had earned the right to say that at this point in the message. About 75% of them very quickly raised their hands. They didn't have to think about it. They knew that they had this idea that they were tomboys. And I said very loudly and determinedly, I said, all tomboys are girls. And they clapped. And then the boys clapped for them. And the boys gave them a standing ovation. That you could be a feminine girl.
Amazing.
And you could be a tomboy in the same body. And it didn't mean that you are in the wrong body. This is so important.
Yes.
So that book is about squashing the stereotypes. That book is about raising the girls you were given, not the girls you wish you had. And things that you can find that you have in common with girls, which is great.
So say, just for those that haven't heard this before, say what the 8 great smarts are. You've just said 3 of them, but just list them by name just to remind those dads that may have heard the conversation or read your book what they are.
I'd love to. Word smart, we think with words. Logic smart, we think with questions. We like math and science. Picture smart, we think with our eyes. We're more creative. Music smart, we think with rhythms and melodies. We love to make noise. Body smart, we think with movement and touch. And then nature smart, we think with patterns. That's how we know a bluebird isn't a blue jay. And then people smart, we think with other people. We love to discuss and collaborate. And then self smart, we tend to think with deep reflection inside of ourselves, and we tend to be quieter. All girls and all boys have all 8. They have them in a different balance, which you can determine, which makes it really fun to connect. It's such an identity build for kids.
Yes. So one of the things I just want to underscore is that if you're a dad listening who has a daughter who's questioning her gender, identity confusion, even beyond just gender, who am I? Where do I fit? There's a psychologist named Eric Erickson who has looked at different developmental stages that are appropriate to us becoming a healthy adult. And between 12 and 18, it is that who am I? Where do I fit? So that kind of struggle and wrestling through is very normal.
Yeah.
So what this is going to do for you, Dad, is tap into your own insecurities, your own belief systems. Maybe your dad raised you to go, this is what a boy is, this is what a boy thinks, this is what a boy does. And so you don't have maybe a very well thought out repertoire of how to respond to your kids who are asking questions that maybe you never asked or were allowed to ask. So Dad, if you are in a place of maybe hesitancy of going, I feel very inadequate to deal with this, go ask your mom or go ask the youth pastor. The research confirms that your view of your daughter and your son is being woven into their self-concept. So it's vital that you enter into this conversation, even if you don't feel equipped. Reach out to Dr. Kathy, Celebrate Kids, Inc. You can reach out to me, drmichellewatson.com. You can meet with us for coaching, and we want to come alongside you so that you don't exit the room when the conversation comes up, but you have resources to stay in and allow yourself to feel uncomfortable or feel pulled beyond your window of tolerance. That's okay.
Yes.
But get the support you need to stay in the game, stay in the conversation, stay in the room.
I love that. I love your podcast because you're guys, dads, it's so important that they're involved. We wrote the book for this very reason, Michelle. If they choose to read the book and you can read it with your daughters, you could sit down and say, man, I'd love your reaction to this. Why are you reading that book? And you'd have to tell them why you're reading it. You know, that you want to parent strong and you want to understand cultural stuff that's going on and you love them so much that you want to be informed. But then you could read part of it with them. I think reading the girl chapter with them could open up so many fascinating conversations.
Absolutely. Okay, I was going to give that promo idea or that practical action step, but I love that you did. So what I'm telling you, dads, is I didn't know she was going to say that. She didn't know I was going to say this, but we're both saying what we've both seen as authors is that when a dad, mom too, but we're speaking to men, say there's tension in the room, I feel the awkwardness and I would love to just break it by leaving. When you look down at a book, it helps break the tension. From looking at each other. Yeah. So you can look down at the book, open it up together. Both of you are feeling it, but you've got someone to guide you through that tension or that awkwardness to get the conversation moving, because that is one of the best gifts you give us, Dad, as women, is when you keep us talking. Keep the conversation going. And it's like Dr. Kathy and Dr. Jeff are right there with you in the room. So if you don't know what to say next, you'll look down and go, let's look at the next paragraph, shall we? And you keep it moving. Well, I want to read a couple things that I wrote down from your book that I think are really powerful and worth underscoring. So you begin a chapter by saying gender confidence rises on the shoulders of identity confidence. When a teenage girl can name how God wired her and why that wiring matters, she stands steady in her own skin. Then you say, when even one need is starved. So if a daughter really needs to know who am I, where do I fit, I have that need. If she isn't getting that need fed, hence your word starved, identity feels negotiable. When all 5 of her core needs are met, a girl stands rooted in who God designed her to be. And you talk about our mutual friend Wayne, who works for you, Wayne Stender, who wrote this chapter on girls. And you said, Wayne with his daughter didn't launch a lecture. He settled on the floor, eye level, unhurried. And this is the key thing I want you to hear, dads, from Wayne, our mutual friend, a dad who's in the trenches with his kids. We have great respect for him. He let his presence preach safety. Security always speaks first. You're safe with me. What do you want to add to that story about Wayne or what he had to say there? Because it literally moves me to tears when I read this, that
thank you
presence preaches safety.
Yeah, he's a dad of 8. He and his wife, Nancy, have 8 kids, and Nora is their third born. She's the only teen girl. The others are boys. They have 2, their 5-year-olds are also female, but she's the only girl in the top 6, and she's very self-smart. She likes to be alone. She's very creative. She's different. The boys are loud and athletic and, into building with Legos and math and science, if you will, and she was having a hard time fitting in and was questioning whether or not she really fit in the family, I think would be a fair statement. And I just love that Wayne saw that and waited for her to be open to the conversation, stepped in the room and sat on the floor. And he's a 6'6" guy, so he's sitting on the floor with a 13-year-old daughter and, kind of waiting for her to open up. So I think, again, presence matters, not things you give them, but you give them of yourself. Our kids are not going to come to us with questions if we're not available to them. They're going to go to Google, they're going to go to Siri, they're going to ask Alexa, except that we don't have our phones, but we're going to be present with them. I think it's critically important. I love that you pointed that out.
And, I also want to underscore the fact that Wayne had a strong relationship with his daughter prior to her teen years. There was that foundation set.
Yes.
And yet, if you're a dad that maybe is in a divorce situation where you're like, I didn't get as much time, I don't have a solid foundation, so I'm kind of still on shaky ground now as a teen who's struggling because I didn't have that foundation set, it's never too late to put a deposit in now, Dad, even if you say, well, it wasn't perfect. And what I know about Wayne is he let the conversation flow naturally without forcing it. So, Dad, you may need to have half a dozen times of coming in a room with her going, I don't want to talk.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Come back again. And you're going to have to work on your own groundedness without taking it personal that you're being rejected. But just keep showing up. The time will probably come. I can't guarantee, but I would say it's highly likely that one of those times will open up more with you about what's really going on.
I love that. If I could add something to that, Michelle, I'd love to do this. So first of all, let me affirm everything you just said. It's okay, dads, for you not to know what to say. This is new territory for everybody. It's okay that you've had maybe some hard times in the past. You keep apologizing, showing up and said, because I know I haven't always been there for you, I really want to be here now. Can you give me another chance, and prove yourself faithful and get to know your daughter in every way you can. But let me say this, Michelle. One of the things we write about a lot in the book is the reality that many of our boys and girls are thinking they're born in the wrong gender, wrong body, because they're uncomfortable in their body. Could I say we have always, all of us, been uncomfortable at some point in time, right? At some point in time, I was too tall, my voice was too low, hair was curly, hair was straight, teeth were crooked, they couldn't do it, whatever. There's any guy listening to us knows that at some point in the locker room, they were uncomfortable with their body. Now what you're saying is they might be uncomfortable talking to their daughter. They might be uncomfortable listening to their daughter. You can use that, guys. You can say to your daughters, this is hard for me. This is making me uncomfortable because I love you so much. I don't want to mislead you.
Right.
This is I never thought I would have had to have talked to you about this. I thought for sure you'd always know you were a girl and would want to be a girl, but I'm not leaving you just because I'm uncomfortable. And you can use that as an entry point to saying to your daughters, hey, by the way, if you're uncomfortable with something in your body, that is not reason to change your body.
Yeah.
Right? You live through that and you walk out of that confusion and you look for clarity and you look for courage. And I'm here for you to do that. So that I just want to encourage that this being uncomfortable, it's a part of life. And if we run from that and let that win, we're in big trouble. And so are our kids.
So good. Oh, I love that.
Thanks.
Okay, well, before we land the plane, Kathy, I've got to ask you this. You write about 3 truth-tested strategies for preparing girls to have this conversation. Acknowledge the complexity. Invite conversation, which I'm all about. You talk about how to, enhance listening and asking great questions and composing a strategy. Why are those 3 things so important when it comes to gender identity conversations?
Yeah, inviting the conversation like we've been talking about, listening longer, asking profound questions, saying things like, what do you mean by that? What makes you think that that's true? What would happen if you're wrong? Asking different questions, keeping that conversation alive. We can't influence if we don't talk. So that becomes really important. It is complex. Now, it didn't used to be. So some of us are like, wait, you're a girl. How hard can this be?
Yeah.
I mean, listen to their music, watch the shows, Go to school with them one day and watch how their peers talk, walk, and dress, what's being taught in the schools if you have the kids in public schools. So it is complex. We don't have to like it, but it's true. And that's why they need clarity and they need our, common sense, if you will, to come alongside of them. And then, this idea of a strategy, this is going to come. If you read the book, if you listen to our podcasts, if you, do your homework and think about, okay, what is God saying about these things? You can compose a strategy, and that's going to give you great confidence that you can be successful. And there's going to be a day coming when, I believe this is true, when the conversation will not need to happen because your strategy has been compassion, hope, truth, courage, confidence, Bible, the right mentors. We're going to get off of social media. We're going to turn off the TV. You can do some things that are strategic that are going to change everything, and it'll be good for you.
And we're talking about a biblical worldview. So what better, Dad, than going to the Word of God? Memorize Psalm 139 with her.
Yes.
I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Memorize it with her and let the Word of God take root. Well, before we're done, I always end every show with a go step. So if we're just wrapping this up, you've given a lot of practical application, practical ideas. But if a dad was going to take one step forward today in initiating connections with his daughter and life-changing conversations around gender so that he can raise a gender-confident daughter, where would you tell him to start?
Wow. Well, I was in general, I would say know your daughter. Choose to study her like you study the Bible. What makes her tick? What turns her on? What is she thinking about? What does she like and dislike in general? And that gives you the confidence and I think the authority to speak into her about the complex issue of gender. And then, just watch her carefully. Where is she confident? Point that out to her. Where might she be confused? Ask her about that. Think back 10 years ago. What were you thinking of her? And I would say do your homework. If you have a kid who you think, boy, I'm glad I caught this podcast. I think my daughter is confused, but she hasn't talked with me yet. See if there's a way for you to bring it up in a kind and compassionate and courageous way so that she is getting your influence because she's getting influence from somebody. And Michelle and I want the influence to be coming from you. And that means that you have to have the confidence to speak up.
So good. I love that because you're highlighting, speak into her life the positive things that you see instead of just focusing on an area of struggle. So good. Okay, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Oh, thanks, Michelle. Well, celebratekids.com is our website. All of our podcasts are there. We podcast as well. All my books are advertised there. So celebratekids.com. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Celebrate Kids Inc. And we'd love for people to follow and read our stuff and listen to our stuff. And again, thanks for letting me come on the show. I love you so much. You're so good at what you do.
Oh, I love you too. You're such a treasure to my heart. And I know that dads are going to be easily resonating with the things that you've shared today. Well, On Your Mark today has been raising gender-confident daughters. I've been here with my guest coach, Dr. Kathy Koch, my dear heart friend. And we're so glad, dads, that you've taken the time, moms too, to listen to this conversation today. Well, I'm Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield, the Dad Whisperer, signing off and encouraging you, Dad, to make today a day where you intentionally and consistently invest in pursuing your daughter's hearts. Go Dads!
Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Dad Whisperer podcast with Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield. If you're looking for more resources to support the father-daughter relationship, or if you want to connect personally with Dr. Michelle, you can find all the information you need at drmichellewatson.com. That's drmichellewatson.com. And remember, you can listen to the Dad Whisperer podcast anytime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and while you're there, we'd love for you to subscribe and leave us a review. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you again on the next edition of the Dad Whisperer podcast with Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield.